What's going on with you guys? Welcome to Survive the Culture Podcast. I am your host, DJ, with my co-host,
Josh.
and today we'll be talking about communication and the importance of communication. Hope you guys enjoy this episode. We have a lot more to come. Be on the lookout. Let's get to it. All right, you guys. So today in the episode, we have a special guest. It's really special to me because I've known him pretty much most of my life. So, I always learn something new from him. And, I hope you guys really learn a lot from this episode because I know every time I talk to him, it's always a learning lesson. We have special guest Malcolm in the building. What's going on, Malcolm?
Hey, what's going on, everybody? Y'all can hear me just fine?
We good. We
Yeah.
good. We live
Yeah.
in action. Let's get it. I told him
I feel
already
like,
the topic. We're going to
yeah.
be talking about communication and, the importance of it and just all aspects of communication. So, I guess we could start off pretty much by talking about what does communication mean to you? We can start off
Oh,
like
I
that.
mean, communication, is everything. Communication is everything. Nothing happens without communication. I can have any kind of thought, idea, but unless I communicate it into existence or speak with someone to help me build it, it means nothing. There's no movement or unification without communication, right? Especially in times like today, you want to check on your loved ones. Unfortunately, I'm from the 80s. We used to go to your door, knock on and things, but because of the coronavirus, now we have this thing of distance and I can't really go and touch you. So now communication is extra vital. Why? Because I need to check on your status, make sure you're good, things of that nature, right? Um, so I mean, are we going right into this? Like, do we get
Let's
into the?
yeah, let's get straight to it. No holds barred, you know what I'm saying? Let's get to it. I'd rather get straight to it than, beat around the bush. I feel like we're gonna learn a lot. So yeah, let's get straight to it then.
All right, cool. All right, cool. So of course, peace to all the guys on the earth. Thank y'all for your attendance. Today's topic, as D Finest said, is communication. Okay. So let's just get right into it. Communication, right? It is how we get information. So in a sense, communication is just like a tennis match, right? Good communication is like watching Arthur Ashe or Serena Williams play, right? Because they're gonna get the ball, they're gonna hit it back, and it's gonna be respectful, graceful. So communication, right? Someone says something to me, okay? That's like someone hit the ball to my side of the court, right? I have to recognize what was said in order to hit it back, right? So D says, I'm gonna go across the street. Okay, why are you going across the street? You see, that's called recognition and encouragement of speech, proper values and communication, right? What we deal with, a lot of people, they talk with the intentions to not listen, but to dictate or to gear the conversation in a way that's conducive to what they're trying to, right? So if I'm trying to talk about somebody in a bad way, I may bring up things like, doesn't such and such, they feet stink, or doesn't such and such wear bad clothes, and you're going to say, yeah, and that form of communication is called propaganda, because now I'm trying to build up, you know some kind of stimulus against someone. So that's kind of the negative connotation when it comes to communication. So back to what I was saying, a good tennis match, someone in the communication or in a conversation says something to the second party, right? The second party recognizes and acknowledges the statement and basically hits the ball back to the person. That person
Mhm.
recognizes the statement, in terms of, okay, this is what you're saying to me. And it goes back and forth, back and forth. That's called respect, right? The one thing I like to do with communication, I call it regurgitation. It's not throwing up, it's repeating what the person just said. What that does, it
Mm.
sets the line for clear communication, right? Because step one, I repeat what you said. That's respect to say, I heard you. That's number one in communication. We have to be able to hear what's being stated. Okay. We'll come across that bridge again, because a lot of people, they don't have the capacity to hear what's being stated. And that's not a bad thing. Okay. That's a good thing, because that's how we get to learn the things we don't know. So step one, you acknowledge what is stated. That's called respect. Okay. Step two, you speak upon what's spoken on. So if
Mm.
D Finance is talking about crossing the street, I say, okay, you want to cross the street, but then I respond with, well, I'm gonna go play tennis. That's not really talking on his conversation. That's introducing my idea, which is okay, but we're talking about his idea, right? The idea of communication is stick to the topic being communicated. We often, this goes back to listening, want to resort back to what we understand. So D, if they said he wants to go across the street, and I reply with, I want to go get pizza, maybe I don't understand what crossing the street is. But that's up to me to say, you know what, I'm not understanding this.
Mm.
Unfortunately, in this day and age, we deal with too much ego and ignorance, where people don't have
Facts.
that ability to check themselves to say, you know what, I don't understand this. They're saying, well, something must be wrong with you. But how is something wrong with you if you're communicating something to me, right? The issue isn't with you. I have to recognize what's going on with me. There's something I'm missing that you're saying, and I have to be that mature person and say, you know what, D, I don't understand what you're saying. Let's revisit your statement until
Mm.
I get it. It's time consuming. Okay, it's very painstaking, but guess what? I have clarity. I know what you're talking about, right? And now we can move forward. That's not what happens in this day and age, right? So if you look at the
Facts.
statistics from what's going on with all this corona stuff, right? It saddens me that the fact that we have more time to be around family, right, and friends, that divorce has gone up, domestic violence has gone up, child
Mm.
abuse has gone up, right? And all of that, I say, surfaces around communication, right? Because the parent is
Yeah.
upset, right? The children gets abused because the parent is upset and they can't communicate to the child what's going on. Bomb, I'd rather just smack you, right? Domestic violence goes up. The girlfriend, the boyfriend, somebody's mad at something. No one's talking about what they're upset about. They're just talking about that I'm upset. Like, D, I'm mad at you because you got a gray hat on. I'm not talking about why I'm upset about your gray hat. I'm just saying I'm upset up. So now you don't know why. And your response, we're trained to respond emotionally. Well, what you mean you don't like my hat? And
Mm.
now all of a sudden we have an argument. And all of a sudden, all the things I mentioned before on the rise, domestic violence, child abuse, you see what I'm saying? Because the
Yeah.
lack of understanding isn't present. And the number one thing, I'm going to go back to this, the number one thing for communication is the ability to listen. If I don't hear what you're saying, what am I saying? Right? If I do not hear what you just said, that's why I say my step one is to regurgitate what you said. That solidifies that I hear what you're saying. Number one. Number two, it solidifies that you hear what you're saying, right? Because most issues with communication is we don't know what's being said. Whether it's you said something you don't understand, or you said something I don't understand, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's where wars are started. That's where emotions get in, right? That's where ignorance set in. I don't know. So how can I get emotional in any sensitive form? How can I
Yeah.
say I don't like this if I don't know about it, right? Now we get into things like the KKK and how they're existing because they don't know. That's a group built on hate because there's no communication of what's going on with the other side, right?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't want to go off that route, but it's communication, and things are implemented and built off of the lack of communication. Because if you don't have communication, that means I don't know. Guess what sets in? Ignorance, and it's easy to manipulate if we don't know.
That's,
Okay.
yeah. It's very easy.
I mean, I'm gonna take a little pause and let y'all talk because I don't want to soak up all this. I
Oh,
want
no,
y'all to
no.
get it back out too.
The whole thing, I feel like honestly, and one valid point I feel like that you brought up was the difference between hearing and listening. And I feel like
Mm-hmm.
it's a thin line because someone could be like, "Oh, I heard you," but are you
Mm-hmm.
hearing to let the thought go by, or are you hearing to listen, to understand, to comprehend what's being said? I feel like, and especially nowadays, people don't really take the time to comprehend what's being said. It's kind of like, all right, are you done? Is your point over with? And you know what I'm saying? And then
Right.
it's like on to the next thing. But it's, and in retrospect, you have to think about it from their perspective as at the same time. It's not
Right.
always about, all right, are you done what you needed to say so that I could say what I have to say? Because then that goes back to bad communication. If
Right.
we're not on the same, same page, there's no way we could keep going with whatever we're trying to get towards. It's kind of
Mm-hmm.
like a blockage in a way. And I feel like that's why it's so important to really, learn the person that you're working around, the person you're with, your friends. You know what I'm saying? Communication isn't just about boyfriend, girlfriend. You know what I mean? Like it's much
Right.
more than that. It's, same thing goes when you go to work and there's people that's at your job and you probably don't, you're not a fan of them. Either way, you still have to communicate with them. You still have to have some form of, whether it be messages, talking in person, meetings. There's always some sort of communication that you need to have. And there's a thin line because I feel like a lot of people, even as you mentioned earlier, it's an ego thing. We don't like to admit when we don't understand something. So
Mm-hmm.
instead of, it's almost like, I feel like a perfect example, right?
Okay.
Let's say me at work. I'm at
Okay.
work, my job is to do setups or whatever you want to call it. Say I get a whole list of setups. This is what you got to do: 30 chairs, 30 tables. You know what I'm saying? And let's just use that for example.
Okay.
Now, in my example, let's say I don't understand exactly how to do a certain setup. What
Right.
I normally would do is ask. However, there's been plenty coworkers of mine where they'll be like, "Oh, I don't know how to do it. I'm gonna just do it whichever way, and then live with the results afterwards." And I feel
Right.
like, in a sense, you could consider that an ego thing because they don't want to seem like they don't know, and it's
Right.
okay not to know everything. People got to realize that, like, there's so much in life that you might not know, and
Right.
just asking that question will be good enough for you to understand, like, okay, let me try to figure this out. Let me ask someone who actually knows, because it's communication. Like, even Josh, I'm sure you could give examples of good and bad communication. So if you want to, I'll let you give some examples that even happens in your personal life.
Right.
Yeah, like I could say something about my personal life, about relationships. Like I would just like my communication is that if I did something wrong, like I will put myself in that person's shoes. Be like
Hmm.
kind of relate to be like, you know what? I was like, all right, I hear you. So I'm be like, you know what? I'm gonna be in your shoes for a little bit, see how you feel. And sometimes like every time every time in a relationship the man wants to be right or the woman wants to be right, but it's like how y'all gonna how you're gonna resolve the relationship if y'all not communicating right. Sometimes you got to be in that person's shoes. That's why sometimes like when I get into an argument, I'm like, yo, you're not understanding me. Or, what I'm saying?
Mm,
Like kind of like, be in my shoes for a bit and then or I just be like, you know what? I need time to think or you need time to think about what we just said to each other and kind of resolve it, you know? I'm not
mm,
saying I'm leaving you. I just need some time to think about what I just said and
that's
what
facts.
you said to me. So let me just like kind of pause real quick. We can sit down, we
Right.
can sit next to each other, but I just wanted to think about what we were talking about, what we were arguing about, so we can resolve it together. Because I feel like a lot of relationships break up because one person said another thing and another said people said some things and then y'all say things to each other that you're gonna regret saying, and then just done with it. So I feel like you need the patience to actually sit down and actually think about what you say and then be like, you know what, babe, I'm sorry. That this and that, this is what I was trying to say, or vice versa. And I feel like that should be resolved. Yeah.
Right.
You right on point with that. I feel like certain people don't understand the necessity of space. You know what I mean? Like, when you think of communicating, it's not always about talking right away. Sometimes we need time to even process what's being said. You know what I'm saying? Because not everyone processes things in the same amount of time. Some people might take a lot longer than others,
Yeah.
and if you happen to fall under that, category, then that's understanding, you know what I'm saying? So I just feel like it's so important to really take the time that you actually need. You know what I mean? So in some cases, you see it where it's like, all right, the girl or the guy, and I don't even want to just make it girl guy, people in general, they
Mhm.
need things like everything happens at a fast pace nowadays. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
And we don't sit there and enjoy things. Like as bad as it is right now, I feel like this is the time that we always gonna remember this because it's time for you to really practice your communication. No matter who you around, you're going to have to talk to them at some point. So,
Right.
it's the perfect time. Check up on people, you know what I'm saying? And all of this goes under communicating, knowing when it's the right time to talk to somebody, knowing when it's bad time to talk. If like I said, if it's anybody around you that you know really well, know when it's the best time to approach them. Not everyone wants to be approached right away when something goes down. You know what I mean? So understand when it's the best time to do certain things because sometimes you might do it at the wrong time and you get the wrong reaction. And it's
Right.
like they don't necessarily mean to react that way. It's just bad timing. And like I said, it all comes back to communicating. I don't
Mhm.
know about y'all in this sense, but I feel like with I'm gonna give a personal example. So
Mhm.
let's just say a girlfriend or something, right? Let's
Okay.
say something you could like you could feel something's wrong with her, right? And
Yeah.
you really don't know how to approach it because the way you was raised. Let's say I was raised that whenever I see something, I got to say something, right? Now, listen, this still has to go with communicating. This is the way that I
Mhm.
was raised. So I was raised to, if you see something wrong, ask them. It's not about
Yeah.
like the first thing that you think is not, damn, is it the right time to ask? No, it's like you see something's wrong, you just ask them. Now,
Yep.
this other person, the other girl or boy, have been raised differently. That it's like, all right, if you see something wrong, you give me my personal space. So I feel like that's where a lot of communication issues happen because we're built a certain way. Like we're raised a certain way that it's like, this is the way I was raised. This is the way you was raised. What's in between? So it's like, how do we find that common ground where it's like, all right, this is where I meet you. This is where you meet me. You know what I mean? And that's why I feel like so many issues happen because instead of trying to figure out what's that median, it's like
Right.
I'm right and the other person's like I'm right. So
Right.
where do we go from here? Is it just a matter of we're both right? Because that's rarely the case. You know what I'm saying? You're gonna feel your way about certain things and I'm gonna feel my way about certain things. So I feel like we both, if all parties took the time to really understand where the next person was coming from, it
Right.
would be a lot easier to get through certain things. You know what I mean? And I don't know how do y'all feel about it?
Yeah.
I mean, you basically you touched upon um key items. Um and just to kind of summarize what I'm trying to say is culture basis, okay? Because
Mm,
the beautiful thing about the United States is that it's a melting pot, okay? If it's done in the world, you're going to find it done in the United States, okay? Which is great. But that leads to differences, okay? I mean, look, I was in a situation in terms of, I'll go with the relationship, but I'll cover relationship, work, and just personal with myself, okay? So in the relationship, I was dealing with a female who was of African American nature, okay? The parent was from Africa. Okay.
mm-hmm,
That is a communication difference because Africans communicate different than Americans, which is not a bad thing. That's a beautiful thing because you get to learn that much more, right? But the issue comes in with communication is maturity. Maturity and the ability to listen is kind of hand in hand. I have to respect what you're saying for me to hear what you're saying. Okay, which goes into being human and showing that respect. But if we can follow these simple protocols of when you say something, I repeat what you say, starting there will eliminate most of the communication issues that we face. Because, like I said, for one, either the person who said it didn't hear themselves, or the person who was said it to didn't hear what the person said. So either way, it needs to be clearly communicated what is being stated, and regurgitation of what is the best way to follow that. Now we get into cultural differences. Okay, so if like you said, the person they were raised in a way that they keep things to themselves, whereas you were vocal about it. Okay,
mm-hmm,
That's a communication factor when you're dealing with the person in the beginning, right? Communication uh, uh, um, instead of it being like, girl, I'm interested in you because I like I like your clothes, or I like the makeup you wear, or I like how you, all irrelevant. Because guess what? At 70, at 80, when all that falls apart, what is the brain? What is the mind that you're dealing with? So now we get into culture. What is she used to? What is she accustomed to? Or what is he used to? What is he accustomed to? Like you said, get into the person. We all seen that movie Avatar, right? For the most part. And they have this line that says, I see you. What we're talking about right now is defining what that is. I see you is to get into the person's life. So if the person is closed, they call it introverted, meaning they're not the communicative type. They hold things. We have to find that out. I can't say I love you if I don't know that about you, because guess what? That's a quality I need to know about you if I'm trying to be with you, right? So
Facts.
it takes the maturity of the person to say, I want to be with this person. I have to learn this person. So I need to know how they respond to things without being in a situation, right? Because what usually happens is, and I don't want to get into dating, but what usually happens is, we get happy over something, whether it be money, credit, or the other C. We'll get into it. And that's a whole other topic, okay? And we overlook characteristics of the ability for maturity, okay? The ability to listen, the ability to communicate openly. Because in relationships, it needs to be an open book. Communication needs to be open. I'm going to take a sidebar because I feel like I'm getting into the dating and relationships. I don't want to focus on that. This is about communication. The reason why I got into the technology field, right? Dealing with computers, okay? You're a person who has an issue with your computer, right? You call me and say your computer doesn't work. It could be anything. It could be the power. It could be something physical. It could be something within the software. It could be something with the network. You see, it could be so many things, just like communication in life. So my job, or the maturity that I'm supposed to have, is to find out what your issue is. How do I do that? It's called probing questions. Okay. Very clear, concise. What happened? When was the last time it worked? What were you doing that caused it? These are clear, concise. We're all on the same page here. I apply those same questions, those same principles to what I do with work, what I do with my personal life, what I do when I'm talking to officers, enforcement, what I do if I'm asking a question from someone from Home Depot. I need it to be clear and concise because we're all here for the same thing, to get a job done together. That's the purpose of communication. I'm communicating something to you because something needs to get done, right? It may be get more toilet tissue at the grocery store. So what are you communicating? I'm going to go across the street, remember, and I'm going to get toilet tissue. Okay, do you say you're going across the street and get toilet tissue? Cool. Whoa, whoa. I didn't mean to say toilet tissue. I meant to say pizza. You see how that works? That's not what we usually do. We say, oh, okay, I'm assuming that that's what you said. I'm gonna keep it moving, and you'll go across the street, go get pizza, and I'm off doing something else because I thought you were gonna come right back and be at the house. And next thing, I left the door open, but I'm off doing something else because. And you see, all of a sudden, we have a problem now, right? If let's say we were roommates, and I'm assuming that you're just gonna go get whatever across the street, and then I take off somewhere, leave the door open, thinking you're coming back, all of a sudden now our house is open, right? If we happen to get robbed, who's to blame? You see, communication, things happen. So we can bring in a real example. So the example of the police officer that happened to kill that gentleman, that when she walked in, I'm not going to talk about that because that is that situation. But we can use that example as man and woman communication. We're not going to go into the officer. We're going to use man and woman communication. Okay, so the girl said she thought she walked into the wrong apartment. So let's use that as bad communication, right? You walk into your own apartment, you don't know someone's there. It's your apartment. So if you think someone is there, that either means you're dealing with someone and you know they're there, or someone's in your house. And you gotta, either way, if I walk into my house and I don't know if someone's there and I hear something, I'm gonna say, hey, who's here? Communication, right? Um, and that has nothing to do with relationships. That has to do with protection of self, communication. We see. So now we're going into another avenue that we didn't really talk about, but communication for protection of self is the most important. I'm going to go into this topic after I do this example. So communication for protection. I go into my house, I hear something, I don't know who's there. I'm a little nervous because I live by myself. No one's supposed to be here. Hey, who's here? I'm communicating openly now, and I'm waiting for a response. Right now, hopefully, I get the response. Oh, hey, it's me, D. Blah blah blah, or I'm a mom, or whatever. Okay, cool. But if we don't get that response, then we have a level of fright, right? So protection. So I have a daughter, right, on this topic, and the most important thing a woman, one of many, but one of the many things that are important a woman can do is communicate, right? Now that I have a daughter who's 5 years old, she's able to communicate her feelings about boys, feelings of other kids who may, make fun of her and this, that, and the other. And I tell her this: I am your father. I will do everything in my power to protect you, but I can only protect you as much as you let me know, right? So if
Mm,
she's getting bullied at school, if someone's doing something to her and she doesn't tell me, I can't protect you because why? I don't have that information. The purpose of communication is to display information from one party to the other in a respectful, progressive manner. I tell you something because we're going to go do something with this information, right? A lot of things fall because we communicate just to say something, right? I'm pretty
mm,
sure we know people. Let's say we're talking about Donald Trump and his policies, and someone yells out, "Yeah, because he always gives out fake lunches," which really isn't about this conversation, but you want to feel part of it. So now you're just saying something. That's 99% of why miscommunication happens. People want to say something like you mentioned. They're not listening. They're in the conversation to say something, not to listen, to grow, to
mm.
learn, to gain. You see what I'm saying? But I digress. Go ahead, y'all.
So yeah, Josh. As I was saying before, I just feel like it's so much to learn from here on. And it just starts by taking it day by day. You can't get the end results by just staying somewhere. You know what I'm saying? They always say stagnant workers never get nothing done.
Right.
So just work towards it. And it's not something that I feel will happen overnight. Most of
Right.
the relationships that happen are, months or years
Right.
involved with each other. So don't expect to know somebody, right off the bat. I just feel like with this whole communication thing, it's so hard because so many people live a life that's not theirs. You know what I mean? Like they put up this act that it's like I'm a certain way. Then you get to know them and you're like, yo, hold up. Who are you? Like I don't remember this person when I was talking to you. This
Right.
and meanwhile that's been them the whole time.
The
You know
whole
what I
time.
mean? You want to say something, Josh?
Yeah, I call that a mask. You
Mm,
that's a
Mm-hmm.
mask to me
Mm-hmm.
because I say that's a mask or makeup. Until that all that makeup runs off, you see the person for who they really are.
ooh, preach, boy,
And
preach.
that's and that's why I feel like in relationships, like you fall in love too quick, or you fall for somebody and you're like, wow, this person's like great for me and stuff like that. And then as years pass by, you kind of see like he gets too comfortable. Now his true colors come out. And then he becomes this type of person. All in all, that's relationship. But my personal thing about me is that I'm not perfect either. Like
Mm,
there's sometimes like when I communicate with somebody, I like to hear I like to hear what I want to hear and not hear the whole full conversation. And sometimes, you know, a lot of people block that. They want to hear
Yep.
what they want to hear, you
Yep.
know. Like I told you about my friend that, I had like feelings for and everything. She said that, yo, I don't like you. Like I don't want to be with you. And in my head I was like, all right, you don't want to be with me, but maybe later on in the future you want to go out with me. But
mm,
that's just but she told me like straight up, like I don't see you as in a relationship. So but I kept
Mm.
taking that in and then just be like not listening and just being like, you know, like nah, she's just playing. Like I know she wants to be with me. That's what I want to hear. But which her true words are saying like I don't want to be with you. I just want to stay as friends. So
Mm.
I had to realize to myself that, you know, yeah, like we have a good communication, like we have a good friendship, and I don't want to ruin that. What I have to understand is that I can't make a friendship into a relationship because there's a lot of beautiful women out there, and there's some that you can't always be in a relationship with a woman that's because sometimes they just want to be your friend, and you just got to be there for them. So that's the thing I have to work on myself and have to realize that sometimes I got to hear them out, not hear what I want to hear, actually hear them out. And so yeah.
Facts. You know what? Just adding on to that, I feel like it's amazing that you're able to acknowledge that. There's so many people. I swear to you, you would ask them, they'll think like they're the most holy person possible. Like, yeah, nothing's wrong with me, everything's good. But in reality, they be the darkest people that you ever met. You know what I'm saying? Like, you're like, okay, you're a different kind of person. So the fact that you know that about yourself is amazing. Like, there's so many people that I know that would never even acknowledge that about. They'll, like you said, they'll hear what they want to hear, believe what they want to believe, and just live this life that's not them. You know what I'm saying? It's okay to, say like, listen, I'm wrong. I don't know. Ask questions. But when
Yeah.
you go into things just assuming, that's another, oh my God. Yes, yes, yes. Assuming.
Okay,
That
okay,
needs to be the
okay.
key word of this conversation. Assuming. You
Assume.
Assume.
might not,
That's the worst.
yo, I've been waiting for that word for the longest. I'm like, yo, it's a word I'm thinking about. Booyah, that was the word. Assuming.
Assuming.
So many times people see things and they're quick to assume. It's like, I don't have the full answer to it, but I got enough to assume.
Right,
And if they took time to just understand that it's not always what it seems. Some
right,
things might look that way, but that doesn't necessarily mean that that's what I'm doing. That is what occurred. You know what I'm saying? Take time
right,
to ask. I know it's so fast to be like people are so quick to react as
yeah,
opposed to saying, you know what? Hold on, what's going on here? And yeah, you do
right,
have people who aren't always honest about certain things. That's why you have to
right,
choose wise and have that communication with that person so that you
yeah,
don't never have doubt about whatever they're doing, behind you or stuff. It's
right,
all communication. And this is exactly why this topic is perfect for this episode because you guys are learning, ways to handle it when you have bad communication, as we gave you,
right,
ways to handle it when you have good communication. There's always a way to handle something. And as long as you guys keep that communication with those around you, everything else will be perfect. You know what I'm saying? It's all going to fall into place, but it
mhm,
doesn't happen if the communication is lacking.
right,
That's the most important. And definitely if you guys want to throw in anything, I feel like there's so much that can be said. But I'll leave it
so
to
much.
y'all if y'all want to say anything.
Like what
Hmm.
Malcolm said about the officer and the woman. I like
Mm-hmm.
to touch on that because a lot of police brutalities happen with least communication. I feel
Right,
like
Facts.
I feel like a
Facts.
lot of police brutalities because it's like the one side is communicating but the other side is not. You know, when they say, "Oh, put your hands up in the air," you do this, and then they say lay on the ground, and then out of nowhere the person is communicating, but then out of nowhere the officer's not, and then they do something that is
Exactly.
like not communication, and then they say like, oh, he wasn't like, oh, he wasn't he didn't cross his legs. I was like, but he was still communicating. You just wasn't like listening.
Yep.
You know what I'm
right,
saying? So I feel like, and the license, and then there was another one. A guy was giving him his license registration out of his pocket, and the guy thought it was a gun. I was like, that's least communication because he's communicating with you, but why are you not responding to the communication? It's because it's like I feel like a lot of police officers. I'm not saying mostly all of them because they're getting a bad rep for what they're doing because now people are scared of a person that's supposed to protect us. Now we're scared of them.
Mm-hmm.
Now it's like a bad rep. It's like, yo,
right,
you're supposed to protect us, but now I'm feared that you might shoot me because I'm trying to communicate with you, you know? And in like we said, like we get emotional. Sometimes people get emotional. They don't know how to speak to officers, and then the
Right.
officer would be like, sir, ma'am, please step back. Like it's like I'm trying to communicate with you. My brother just got shot. This person got hurt and stuff like that. I don't know how. This is how I communicate. You know what I'm saying? I communicate emotionally because somebody that's close to me is hurt, and
Right.
Mm-hmm.
they'd be like, "Sir, please back up," or "Man, please back up." I'm like, "Listen, I'm trying to communicate with you, telling you that something has happened." But then now they want to arrest somebody just because they got too close to you, or just because that's lack of communication. And I feel like people need to like officers and people need to understand is that is the lack of communication, and also too is like it's what we're seeing and what we're believing, and yeah, and there's also fear too. I feel like it's the fear of communication that people just that's what happens.
Yes.
Oh yeah, you're on point with that. It's a big fear that I feel like a lot of people have it, but the issue is they just don't acknowledge it. You know what I'm saying?
Mm.
And it all goes back to that.
Yep.
Whenever you have an issue, acknowledge it. That's the first step to getting better at anything, acknowledging it. You know what I'm saying? Because then you're aware. You know, okay, I know the first steps. Now I know what I got to do to get better. But go,
Right.
Malcolm, if you got anything you want to say.
I was gonna say, we've seen the comedian Kevin Hart, and he always says, say it with your chest, right?
Hmm.
Um, I tell my kids, say it with your chest, right? And what that really means, I mean, granted, speak it, but if you got something to say it, get it off your chest.
Mm-hmm.
It's that kind of strain if you hold it in. I mean, granted, we're talking about communication, but that's a mental thing. You understand, which is a whole other topic. Like I'm talking, we're going to stick with communication, but that's how valuable communication is. It will help your mental ability in this world because, excuse me, let's say I got beef with you, Josh, Day, whatever, and I'm going, you have no idea, right? Because I didn't say nothing to you. I'm just trying to smile
I
in your
see where
face,
you're
but
going
talking
with it.
behind your
Yeah.
back. You know what I'm saying? Because I don't have the maturity, like you said, Josh. I'm fearful of the communication because I don't want beef, but you blah blah blahs and sob and da 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 da. Communication. You understand? Because like my biggest thing is I would rather give you a hug than a slug, right? Because that doesn't help anybody. If we out here putting slugs in people, we doing they work. Our work
Mm-hmm.
is to be kings and communicate ideas, build our communities, build the people around us. And the only way that happens is if A and B have a point of communication. It's called interaction, or we call it a median, right? A median is anything that helps you interact, right? There's a median between the spiritual world and the reality. There's a median, Josh, like you said, between people and officers. There's a median between people and computers. We call it the internet. You know what I mean? Things like that. So communication is so important. Like I said, I got into an entire industry to help me in life with how I communicate. Because I can't just say, oh, I got a problem. What does that mean to y'all? Because what could it be? Who knows? So now, excuse me, it's up to either myself who's trying to communicate, that's where it should come from. But you and I know that's not usually what happens. Now we have to, oh, you got a problem, Malcolm. Well, what's going on, Malcolm? How's your day? That's usually what people want you to do. And that's going to go under the assumption category that we were talking about because they want you to assume that, you have an issue and they want you to get it out versus me saying you got a problem, you ain't trying to talk about it. I'm gonna just turn my back because you want to play a victim. I'm not going to
Mm-hmm.
play. If you have an issue, communicate it. Get it off your chest. I don't know. I don't want to take time to figure out what's going on if I'm trying to figure out what's going on openly. What's going on with you? You're like, I don't know. Like, no, we're not going to, no.
Yeah,
That's
that's a fact. I feel like, man, it just continuing it. You know, I don't want to go too much because I feel like we already gave so much within this time, and a lot of this stuff y'all gonna have to wait. To really see because we're gonna obviously have way more topics, and this is just like I said, this is just the first episode.
Right.
So just imagine the kind of topics that we could have going forward.
Yeah.
So I hope. that you guys got a lot of information from it. I don't want to keep going, and have this whole interview be 2 hours. Because trust me, we can do that. It's so much with this topic.
I got
Trust me.
time. I got time. I got
We definitely got time.
time.
But being it's the first one, I don't want to go too much in details. And then what I'll try to do is make this a part one and part two type thing, or, just figure a way how to go about it. But like I said, if anyone has closing remarks, I think we should go with that now, because we gave so much gems within this episode that,
Yep.
hey, if y'all got any closing remarks, I'll close after y'all finish. But if y'all want to
Okay.
say anything, we can go with that.
I'll sign off right quick. I'll sign off because I respect y'all, man. I appreciate the fact that we as men can come together and talk about it. Okay.
Facts.
That right there, that's a whole other topic. Men talking. Okay. That but we ain't going there. We closing out. So like I said, I respect y'all, man, and I'm proud of us. I'm proud of you, Day. I'm proud of you, Josh. Like I said, for being able to just come out here and give insight, constructive, because we're not talking about nothing. We ain't talking down about nothing. We can talk about ourselves in a constructive way. We're not saying, "Oh, I'm a loser," right? Because what that builds is encouragement for those that are listening. Instead of being such negative, and we're not negative, we're realists. This is what really happens in the world, and everything that we discuss, someone can point out and say, "Yeah, I went through that." And then we given not only the issues but solutions, right, in our own light, in terms of things you can try in your own way. Obviously you can reach out to us if you have questions, but this is the beginning, like my man Day said, of a lot. So like I said, I appreciate you both. If you want me back, give me a shout. You already know I'm here whenever, and
Oh,
whatever we need to do, I want this to be a movement, like a true platform for the people to just learn life values, right? Because we're too caught up in vanity and the dollar and the this and the that, and you can't even go to your job, right? The whole thing now with the coronavirus, life is way different than what we knew. So whatever you know has to change to what you want. And I'm gonna sign off. MXD, y'all holla at me.
appreciate it. Appreciate it. Josh, you want to say anything in closing?
Man, it's just like I hope everybody gets the knowledge that they get, man. It's just that's what we want, man. We just want people to learn and appreciate what we were talking about and the knowledge that we give them, because feel like nobody's learning this in school, man. Nobody's learning this in life. We too many kids having kids, man. We gotta be the adults to actually give them the knowledge that they need. And like I said, Dave, when we talked about this podcast, I was like, you know what? There's so many people that we can help, and so many people that move and make them feel like they can open up. That's the best thing, because that's what I want. I just want to help people. That's the type of person I am. I think about people, other people than myself, because I feel like if I can help somebody, I know they'll help me in the future. I know they'll help me in the end. So this platform is gonna help people that's gonna help us. So that's what I want to do, and that's what we're doing, giving knowledge and helping people out.
Hey, y'all both said it best. I'll just give the, last little closing remarks before we end this episode. For me, I'm gonna be honest, this has been the most fun I've had in a long time. Just getting together and just expressing ourselves. Because in certain times it's so looked down upon. So trust me, the episodes will be coming. I'm looking forward to what's to come, and I hope you guys learn something out of this podcast. Because I'm literally hosting and I'm learning so much just by talking. So Malcolm, I definitely appreciate you being a part of it. Josh, I'm glad you know how that go. I'm glad
Yeah.
for both of y'all, man. I really appreciate it. And hey, we're gonna have to run this back. You know what I'm saying? We're gonna have to run it back.
Hey,
We're gonna see how the schedule going, and we're gonna get it. Other than
word.
that,
Consistency.
I,
Consistency is key.
facts.
Yep.
And in closing, I hope everybody out there staying safe. Make sure your family's straight, and do all you can, to really keep your mentals correct. And I know it's hard out there for everybody. Just try to do the best you could do. And with that, we're gonna close it out like that. Hey, all right, y'all. Let's get it.